Hello and welcome to what I call the second part. We're trying to think of a name, Mark, weren't we? Swinging Green Jeans, we thought.
I like Swinging Green Jeans because if you saw our episode fundamentally about Jock Stein's life and the way that he transformed Celtic, I love the phrase that you had chosen to describe the way that football was happening in Glasgow as opposed to the way that football was happening in Milan at that particular time. And it's straight jeans versus flare jeans.
It is.
And guess what? The Scots were the ones wearing the flares in this story.
They were the more sort of expansive.
Yeah. There
the
you
more
go.
Expansive of the two philosophies really at the time. This is, of course, if you know your history, I'm Johnny Owen. Those dulcet tones were, of course, those of Mark Webster.
Correct. You can probably tell us apart when we talk.
Yes. You can subscribe, follow, download, listen, all the usual shenanigans.
Totally.
To the podcast. Thank you for all your support. We've decided to do these, split them into two because we had so much to talk about, because Celtic winning the European Cup in 1967 and Scottish football really has such a rich seam of history. And talking of seams, obviously, Jock Stein, the Celtic manager, was a minor. And this is something we discussed.
I thought you were literally going back to jeans again.
Oh, yeah. Double meaning.
It's all over the
Double
place.
whammy.
Everything's sitting down like we're playing.
And I was thinking like, that would have been a nice thing to use because Celtic didn't just do the double that year. They did what do you call the five trophies?
Okay. It's a quadruple plus one.
Yes.
Because that's all I've got.
Cent is five. So
Centiple?
Yeah.
No, that's a stupid word. Should we ask someone who's sitting near us to look up?
Yeah, look up what winning five things would be.
Please shout it out when you know, because we're going to look impressive then.
There is nobody in history quite like Celtic and what they did that season, winning every single thing they entered, in the sense of it was the Glasgow Cup, the Scottish League Cup, the Scottish Cup, the Scottish title. And the European Cup.
And then the unlikely one.
Yes.
Because, as you pointed out, and of course, you know, if you've not seen it, go back, find our Jock Stein episode. It sets this up perfectly. There was nothing to indicate that a team from the British Isles had enough to beat one of the teams, which is arguably probably Italy and Spain at that point in Europe as the dominant forces, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Real Madrid had absolutely dominated the European Cup in its early inception. And then it did become sort of Benfica and Inter Milan, the sort of more, I suppose you'd call Latin teams.
Quite.
And it's interesting, a bit like the 4-minute mile. Nobody said they could ever beat it or break it. It was impossible for a human body to do it. And he breaks it, Roger Bannister. And I think about 20 people broke it within the next 6 months.
That's right.
So it's like once something's done, and famously, of course, and we will talk about this in another episode, Manchester United go and win the European Cup the following year, 1968, famously beating Benfica at Wembley. But Celtic did it first. There's not two ways about it. There's a wonderful bit of footage which you can watch on YouTube. Me and Mark often direct you there, of Celtic winning the Sports Personality Team of the Year on the BBC. And Sir David Coleman, as he was, gets Sir Matt Busby on stage to give the trophy to George. And you can see instantly that they're friends.
Yes.
You can see instantly. Because as he hands him the trophy, Matt does this funny thing of like pretending to nick it back off him and Jock laughs.
Right.
So you can see they're very close friends, which is lovely to see. But, you know, it's Celtic that won it first, something that they're inordinately proud of, and Scottish people are, you know, mostly. I know there's Rangers fans, but even Rangers that year were incredible. They went to the European Cup Winners' Cup final themselves, lost it by the odd goal to a very fine Bayern Munich team, and had a goal disallowed, as every Rangers fan.
Right, so the city's in its pomp at this stage.
But one is pushing the other, Mark. You know, you always talk about this.
That's a good point.
You need a Fraser for an alley.
Yeah.
You need do you need the protagonist? And Rangers are no doubt a part of why Celtic are so good at this point.
That Roger Bannister needed his pacemaker as well to get him across the line. So that makes sense. When we left the conversation in the Jock Stein episode, you've got Jock Stein fundamentally arriving at a Celtic team in its doldrums.
Yes.
A man who's been successful at two other Scottish clubs and done a remarkable turnaround at both of them.
Yeah.
Turns down the opportunity to go down to
Wolves.
England and to manage Wolves, which would have been as another one of the kind of the football giants at the time.
Winning titles as you know, in 1960.
So he's going back to Celtic though, because you have reserved the FA Cup. Yeah. So he's going back to Celtic, where he knows a lot of the fellas from the reserve team years. Was there an indication very early on that he had the capacity to make that lot into an impressive team?
I mean, I think he knew he had the potential there. He did these interesting things, Mark. It's all kinds of like footage of this. He had a tactics board. Things now you just go, okay. He was a tracksuit manager, which was not unusual.
Not all were.
All were. So he was kind of like somebody that very much. I mean, I spoke in the previous episode. He would travel to Europe to watch teams. He was an ardent student of the game, and I think he made players feel. He certainly let players know what they need to do on the pitch.
Right.
He had a fine understanding of the game, so they respected him for it. But to use a brilliant Archie Macpherson story, and I know I keep mentioning Archie Macpherson, but he was his famous biographer and probably the most famous Scottish presenter, and his hairstyle.
Incredible Barnett.
Yes, exactly. That sort of like Arthur Scargill sort of thing, where it's like sort of slightly cooned over to one side.
And every spring, little birdies waiting for the mummy to bring home some worms would sit upon it.
There's a word, yes. He looks amazing now. He shaved it off. He should have done it years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, he looks fantastic.
It's a strong look.
It's a strong look. But he said something to me which really resonated. He went, I have met and spoken to amazing philosophers on the game of football, tacticians, who could talk long and hard of the intricacies of football, but they couldn't make you stand up when they walked in a room. Jock could.
Really?
Which I always thought was a wonderful way of describing the presence that he would have had.
Yeah.
Straight away with the players. I mean, when he arrives at Celtic at this point, his reputation is stellar because of what he's done at Dunfermline and Hibs instantly. So he would have the instant respect of the players. He's an ex-Celtic player. He's won trophies for them. He's got a deep connection with the club. So at this point, you've got prime Jock Stein. I always do this thing where people always ask me, and it was so tough doing Three Kings because I'm a huge fan of what Busby did, and obviously it was exacerbated by the fact he came back from such dreadful tragedy. Shankly, who built like this empire that's still there now, really, this idea of the Kop and Liverpool, and tapped into the area in a way that I think was utterly unique. But then, gun to my head, if they said like time machine, and you could have a manager now that could come back, and you've just won the Euro Millions, and you've bought Merthyr Tydfil, and you could pick a manager. I think, Mark, in 1966 Jock Stein, you are probably getting arguably, and I'm going to say arguably, the greatest football manager that ever existed.
Yeah, that's a very good. And clearly at the time, this is what makes him that guy. Yeah. This is what puts him in that position to be to be put on that mantle.
Yeah.
And as a direct result of it, because everything you've said in terms of the way he's been successful with Celtic domestically, would that have arguably been enough? Because is anyone that ambitious there to assume that a campaign in Europe will be equally successful?
I think so, because he said it. What did he say? I think we'll win everything, boys.
Yeah. Now, of course, that's the truth. So he wins 5 things, which, of course, is...
A what? They still don't know. A quintuple. Oh, wonderful, but it was a John Quinn.
Thank you, John.
And it's called a quintuple.
Where's a quin?
I have heard people actually say quintuple.
A quintuple.
It's a quintuple, but what it is, old Johnny Fives over there has just come up with...
He was the man to ask.
He was. John. There was no one. That really, the clue was always there, wasn't he?
I know you were with me. Quintuple.
Quintuple's nice. I
like
that.
It's like the Dickensian, isn't it?
It really is. Hello, Alfred Quintuple here at your service.
Good morning to you, Mark.
Bring your small child to me. I'll make sure he lives in destitution while I live. Hire the hog.
But I'll make him a man.
Oh, so I will. It's going to be a journey, but it's one worth taking, man. I like that. So that's great, because that means... When he says we will win everything, he genuinely means we're now going to have to keep jumping on the ferry. And
he's as good as his word.
On an aeroplane.
There is just as an aside, somebody might be able to tell us, and I love the fact they do. Apparently, there's an Egyptian team called Al Ahly SC. Al Ahly, who done the same.
Oh, well done then.
When did everything and won the African Nations
which of course is no mean feat.
When everything ended in Egypt. Apparently there's another team. But Celtic were always the team in pub quiz questions who won every single football team, who won every single competition they entered. That's domestic football team.
Amazing.
It was Celtic. But what we're going to talk about in this first part, just briefly, is they are entering a competition with Real Madrid in it.
Yes. Who
have won the European Cup the year before. And the team that won it the 2 years before that, Inter Milan, who are managed, as we said previously, by the most famous manager on the planet at this point. And his name is Heleno Herrera.
Double H.
Double H. And he was born in Argentina, fascinating character, to a father, an Andalusian father, who was an anarchist, escaping Spain and was a carpenter.
Oh, I like this, man. Was he a chip off the old block, John?
Yeah. So he's got this really interesting family history. I believe his mother's name is Marie. She was a cleaner. And after 10 years in Argentina, we did a lovely episode on Argentina, what it was like, a hotbed of football. He goes to Morocco, the father, to try and find a new life for his family, which is an interesting sort of, departure, I suppose.
Kind of romantic as well.
Morocco French speaking at that point, Mark.
It would have. I think colonised famously,
by the French.
And so you had there's a very strong European influence.
Absolutely.
Obviously Moorish as well, but obviously, yes.
So he goes there as a young boy, and he shows an extraordinary interest in football and an ability in the game. And Mark, when I chat to Mark, obviously me to chat through the notes, and I really enjoy it. And we had a few pieces of toast yesterday. Mark has
we
been,
did.
Mark
I haven't. No,
cut his cabs out, yeah.
I mean, white bread and all, John.
I know.
I mean, I come crashing down from my high horse of eating superiority.
Wonderful to watch
fluffy
eating.
White,
Oh,
fluffy
with
white
butter.
toast, wasn't it? It really was, and it was proper butter, wasn't it?
Why deny yourself that? You know, one day, Mark, we'd be lying on our deathbeds and be going, I'm really glad I didn't have that bread. You'd be going, I'm glad I ate that bread
I'm so
that day with
pleased,
Johnny.
isn't it? It's like, toast is so satisfying. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It is. I've had it all my life. I've tried. I've gone to oats every so often and bran flakes.
You give it
There's
a go.
nothing like toast.
Give it a go.
I'm just going to stick to toast.
Of course, it's always toast, isn't it?
Anyways, we have this toast, and Mark gets very excited mid-chomp when I say that HH, let's call him HH because everybody calls him HH
Yes.
all his career. HH is playing at this point as a centre-half for RC Casablanca.
See, romance is never dead, is it?
I think this is why I love Mark so much. There's a team, if there's an RC Casablanca playing in Morocco in the mid-30s, for example, you would want to play for them.
Oh, that's yeah, they play. Oh, all back to Rick's bar afterwards.
Humphrey's there.
Exactly, that's right. So we've got Doody Wilson on piano. We're going to sing the Marseillaise when the Nazis walk in. We're going to have the time of our lives, aren't we? Oh, looking forward to that. Yeah, it is full of romance.
It is,
and as I say, that's why it's such an interest. He's been given, in a slightly less prosaic way than Jock Stein had an interesting beginning by making Dunfermline an important footstep on the way there. HH gets Casablanca. Lovely.
And this is a man, I think he cut quite a dash. Great looking guy. You know, the cliches, dark hair, you know, very sort of Latin looking, you know, very serious about football. And fascinates me a little bit because he ends up playing a lot in France, sort of ends up in France during the Second World War. They keep the league going, obviously, because they get occupied by the Germans.
Right.
The Germans, you know, do that thing of going, oh, we're all normal, really, so keep playing with your football, even though the country's divided into two. You got the Vichy in the south. All this kind of stuff going on, but he plays football, and he's kind of all his football career is kind of spent in France. Plays for like Stade Paris and teams that like almost don't exist now because people forget this. PSG are a new team, only formed in 1971.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's all this stuff going on, but he does end up managing sort of a lot of time, and he kind of like he moves between France, Portugal, and Spain before he goes to Italy, and he's very successful. He wins titles in Spain. He wins La Liga with Atletico Madrid, not Atletico. And he's goes to Barcelona. He wins a title with Barcelona.
So he is in all again strangely Stein-like in that sense.
Yeah.
Journeying his way through football in some genuine hotspots.
He is.
He will have been accessing so many new ideas and such fresh talent, wouldn't he?
He does, and he's a massive fan of 5-3-2. What they call the verrou, the door bolt, which is a very sort of like European thing. Later becomes the very famous catenaccio.
Right.
But it kind of starts with this Austrian coach called Karl Rappan, who kind of invents that sort of idea of a sweeper, five at the back, man marking people. As straight a gene as you could possibly imagine, Mark.
See, it's really interesting.
Skin tight.
No,
jam
that's
tight.
Right. The blood will not circulate.
Yeah. This is Joe Strummer, 77 tight, as an antidote to what then was the hippie
and
flame.
Don't get caught short. And because the way that the sweeper stories do it, because when you go back to say Hullet and the Dutch sweeping, it was a really positive move.
No,
because this guy would come flying out. Your man would come. He's spare. He comes flying out. But I think it's safe to say this sweeper system was basically just another defender, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
to
was.
a great extent.
Just behind.
Unless you're freeing up the wing backs.
Yes, which is what he did.
Yeah.
Which is what this development of catenaccio, he took this to his grave. He used to get a bit annoyed by seeing as the guy that invented catenaccio,
by the way,
which is a rusty door bolt, by the way. It's like it translates as not a door bolt, it rusts on as well.
It does. And the kind of implication being is it translates into the much less catchy and romantic narrow victories, which of course is... This is what he specialises in, though, doesn't he? Well,
this is his thing. He takes this to Inter Milan, where he develops it brilliant, and he becomes the guy that thing. But it's more than just just defensive, dour Italian football, as the cliche is, and we all kind of grew up with a little bit, didn't we?
Right.
But it wasn't kind of true, really, because we watched some glorious Italian teams. The team of, 1970 World Cup, they played some good football, but they played Catenaccio because they were influenced by HH.
Yes.
HH literally permeates into all parts of Italian football.
Right.
But it's that five at the back. It's very, very counter-attack. Two pacey fullbacks. He used to say as an older man, my fullback scored as many goals as my forwards, and he was really
Right.
proud of this. So this is a very, and I was thinking, Forest last year played football in a very specific way, a new way, wasn't it? They'd wait, they'd let you have the ball,
Yeah.
and then they'd hit you on the and it was
Comfortable,
like, yeah,
sitting,
Hudson-Odoi,
sitting holding.
yeah, to the Alanga. Get it forward. There's Wood in the middle. Get it into the box.
Yeah.
And so
Pretty
this is
simple.
Simple, but it's a kind of a form of like that Catenaccio
Right.
that we talk about. But there's some wonderful sayings, Mark, because I just want to set this guy I know you love. He was the first manager where you weren't allowed to drink and smoke. You just couldn't drink and smoke.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
He developed this idea.
So he never went to Rick's Bar at all.
No,
then,
he
did
didn't know.
Oh, okay,
well,
fine.
Jock would have liked that as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But Jock was always on to Jimmy Johnston about being in the pub all the time. Jock was like, why? Because a player can, I don't know, make his career as long as he wants. As we've seen now with people like
Right.
Gareth Bale and Ryan Giggs would be the example. You could play for a long time in football now if you look after yourself.
Yes.
In those days, it was a steak for a game and a pint and a fag after, wasn't it?
Well,
in
I mean,
British.
it's a team for the working class boys from Glasgow.
Yeah.
They're going to carry with them a certain
Couldn't agree more.
DNA.
In Italy, it's very different, right? And
Right.
the Celtic team talk about this when they come out to the tunnel, how magnificent they all look. So they don't drink, they don't smoke. Their diet is spectacular. They go away and stay together. He pioneers this idea of going away as a team and staying for away trips.
Oh, okay.
So he's all that.
I mean, basically all the standard stuff.
All the standard stuff.
He is inventing
There's
them.
two wonderful quotes I got here, which I wanted to say to Mark, which I love. Let teams have the ball, this is HH. It's what you do with it that counts.
Oh,
And that's
so true.
So true. Well, in the modern game, especially, doesn't that ring true a little bit now? We've seen it with Chelsea against PSG in the
Yeah.
final of the World Club Cup. I mean, Chelsea, every time they had the ball, they got behind them and they scored.
It was
basically.
you watched a boxing match between two opposing styles, didn't you?
Yes.
In that Club World Cup final that worked so beautifully. And as you say, it is relying. You've got to have so much faith in your system, though, haven't
Yeah.
you? Because
Well, that's
otherwise
it.
you're losing 5-0 every time.
Well, you've got to have the players.
Because you can't get out.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to have the players.
Yeah.
You've got to have the players that understand where they move. The man marking thing is massive.
Yes.
You stick to your man. And then when you get the ball, the instant thing. Mourinho had it more than sort of Guardiola, didn't he?
Sure.
He would wait. He did this brilliant explanation where he went, you wait for the mistake. And when somebody makes a mistake, you capitalise on it because they're unorganised. I thought that was
Yeah.
a great way of explaining it. So you let them have the ball, but the moment you get them and you turn them, what
They're
they do,
out of shape.
they're out
They're
of
out of
shape.
hand.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you can understand what it is, they're saying. And then another one which I loved he says, nothing demoralises a team and their fans, Mark, more than them having the ball and they cannot score, but we do.
Yeah. You sucked the soul
Yeah.
out of the opposition and their fans.
Yeah.
And now you just clinically and cynically take full advantage of it and have yourself your narrow victory.
Absolutely. And he does say exactly what Mark just said. This lad knows his game. But you have to have the players to do it.
Yeah.
So you can think you've got to have that utter discipline, which the Italians are. So Maldini was a great example.
Right.
Maldini and that AC Milan defence, for argument's sake, was so disciplined, weren't they?
Yeah.
But then that European Cup final, I call that Champions League, where Liverpool came back. If you can, which is what Celtic did.
Right.
If you can ruffle them in a funny way, you can win.
Well, if you can stop them having complete faith in what they're doing,
Yes.
then you have got them all over the place.
Yeah, Brazil obviously did it most famously in the
Yes.
semi-final. It's where you almost get to a point where you're pulling them so far over the park that they kind of become demoralised almost,
Right.
and that can happen.
And it's kind of why the Italian reputation. Sure, it's this, but of course the bit that we think of it as is more cynical.
Yeah,
Because the Italian reputation that we carry with us with their national teams and indeed their club sides is a lot of kicking, a lot
Well,
of destroying
and also-
of development through fouling.
I know, but I couldn't agree more. But Celino against Saka in that Euros final,
Yeah.
where he breaks around and goes through. Now, at that moment, he pulled his shirt right back, and I say this as a Welshman, that was a game-changing moment because he
Yes.
was through. But the Italian player went, I know I can only get booked for this, really.
Yeah.
And I've stopped him scoring the goal. Anything to win, which is a way in itself. utterly amazing. They will do anything to win a football match.
And well worth, which you'll find as we talk on our episodes, there's nothing new under the sun. If you thought that gamesmanship was invented last Wednesday, I think you'll find.
Well, I looked at a thing the other day. I don't know why it come up on YouTube where they literally mathematically went through the Hurst's third goal didn't go over the line. There was nowhere near that ball went over the line.
I'm letting that go, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So in the English or the British classes, it's dreadful. Well, hang on a minute now. There's loads of times when we've sort of done that, but we just don't. You know, when I was a kid growing up, we fair challenging was like almost breaking somebody's leg, which is now ridiculous. But an Italian that tugged you back, that was possibly the worst thing ever.
But
we try to break their legs,
let's
basically.
be very honest. There's 7 English players who every Englishman said, why didn't you kick Maradona? When he went off a 25-minute mazy run.
Volley him in the neck almost, wasn't it? Like, do you know what I mean?
Man.
Yeah, it's like Shilton. Why didn't you just punch him rather than just punch? So there's all that kind of stuff. So and I love this about football. It's all about debate and we, nothing's new under the sun, as Mark just said. So all this is going on, and I'm just going to finish this first episode by half of the episode by just telling you Milan's journey to the final, and then we'll talk about Celtic because it's great. Because Mark's got some wonderful stuff on some of the Milan players as well. Because that's what's important is how big Milan were at this point. HH. Those players in the team, they're some of the most famous footballers in the world at that point. My mum used to say, they were like the best goalie in the world was Sarti and all that kind of stuff. So
and
all
it
this
includes
going
that
on.
lovely bit, which is that their sheer presence before the ball has even been kicked in the final.
Yes,
is an important part of the story.
It's massive. I mean, a lot of people to them were going to win before the start. So anyway, Milan's journey to the final. They've won it in 64-65. Real Madrid have won it in 66. So Real Madrid are the favourites for the tournament with Milan. They are seen as the two. They beat a really, really good Torpedo Moscow team in the first round, Mark. 1-0. Only by the odd goal, again. But then they hit their straps. They beat Vasas with the Hungarian team 4-1 over 2 legs. Quarter-final, they draw Real Madrid. So this is the moment. And
now we've hit pay dirt.
Right.
Yeah.
And people are going, right, this is probably where the winners of the eventual winners of the competition will be found. But they beat Real Madrid 3-0. So the Real Madrid have won it the year before.
Solid, isn't it?
Solid. So at this point, they are red-hot favourites to carry on. They get the semi-final, but they do play a CSK red flag team of Bulgaria, and they draw them at home 1-1, draw away 1-1. They have to win 1-0 in a playoff. So they've had a tough semi-final. But they've managed to get there again.
Yeah.
And like I said, and the big moment is they're beating Real Madrid.
So they've already had their 2 toughest games.
Yes.
This is going to be the mentality.
And the players talk about this. Their players talk about it. They kind of think they've won.
Yeah.
Who was Celtic? Never really. Absolutely no European pedigree. Never been in the European Cup before.
Just got to turn up.
He's just got to turn up. So there's all this kind of stuff going on. And Inter Milan in a kind of place where they go thing. And in the second half, we'll ask you where they played, because there's no football club plays at the ground now. So where the final was played.
Oh, right.
That's what you need. I'll tell you in the second part. And we'll talk about Celtic's journey to the final and then the final itself. Hello and welcome to the second half of this double series, second episode on the great Celtic team, Lisbon Lions. We've also brought in the Inter Milan team, done a bit about Jock Stein, Heleno.
There's a whole Jock Stein episode as well, by the way. If you haven't seen it yet, you can kind of build up to this moment.
To the final.
Quite right.
The 1967 final, which was held in
Lisbon.
Yes.
Hence the Lisbon Lions. And of course, this. And you mentioned it in terms of Portugal earlier on. There, this is obviously a city or a country that's now starting to contribute to the conversation about European superpowers.
They are Benfica,
but it takes place in what is now really, I suppose, an unusual venue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's the Estadio Nacional, the National Stadium.
Right.
It's still there. It's a very distinctive-looking stadium. It's almost like Grecan or Roman, open.
Oh, wow.
Big track around.
So something Colosseum-like about it,
yes,
is there?
absolutely.
Right.
And it's a bit of a pilgrimage now for Celtic fans. When they go to Lisbon, they call in there. And there's all these wonderful stories. I found this great footage when I did the documentary about the Three Kings of Celtic fans who was sort of driving there, trains, planes, automobiles. Took thousands out there as well. And at a time when it was pretty difficult to get you across Europe, of taking like 5 or 6 days to get there. Do you remember those cars?
Somebody said
nice
cars, journey.
Yeah, but some who just stayed there. Some who met women on the way. Some who stopped in France and never got down to Portugal. Some amazing sort of individual stories.
What's great about that is, and it does add to it, is that final could just so easily have been in the former Yugoslavia. I mean, with all due respect to one of the frozen tracks of Europe, this is a much nicer journey to make, isn't it?
Well, but not really, because Portugal at that time is under sort of like almost like a dictatorship.
Oh, the wrong place. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good time. Okay. Good time to make the journey now.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's not like Franco's still in Spain.
Right.
So it's not a particularly pleasant place to go at that point. It's certainly not like it's now ending up over to the Algarve or whatever.
Gotcha.
But they got there. And I was watching the footage, and one thing that struck me was I was watching a documentary about the how sort of motorways changed Britain. And the biggest problem off the M1 certainly open was cars that were designed then were literally designed for city driving. Small, short journeys. The idea of doing 70 and opening up sort of a Hillman Himp.
Well, like 5 of you in it anyway.
A Morris Minor.
Save on the petrol.
Yeah. So the engine. So we all remember growing up. Remember cars broken down quite a lot on the side of motorways, wasn't there? In the AA.
Do you reckon if you did, as you do the journey now, you could, a bit like finding dinosaur bones, you might be able to discover a leftover Hillman Imp.
Yeah.
See what's left of it,
with a Glasgow number plate or something. Yeah. I do think that's it. I mean, it's quite rare, really, to see a car broken down in the motorway. You see them, but nothing like it was when we were kids growing up. And I was in a car once that broke down coming back from Blackpool. We were stuck by Spaghetti Junction, kids' side of the motorway. It's kind of things that happen. I know, and I remember it really well. A guy pulled up. I know it's a podcast about football, and dropped us back in Merthyr Tydfil. A guy pulled over and went, "Are you a fan?"
No.
Yeah, he did. Isn't it amazing how people are in the world sometimes?
I broke down in a converted post office comma van, which I swapped for my dad's car that he gave me, which is his Avenger, that I swapped with a bouncer from a nightclub in Gravesend, and it broke down in the entrance to the Blackwall Tunnel. Oh, that was fun.
Oh, that's not a place you want to break down, is it?
No. All we had to do though with it was we had to ultimately get it over the hump, and then it rolled and it bump started.
Oh yeah.
So,
do you remember the bump start?
Only too well.
Do you know, I was reading an interesting fact about this. Do you know indicators on a modern dashboard which tell when you're running low on petrol?
Yeah.
That's practically stopped people running out of petrol. Whereas before that, do you remember when you just have to guess if you were getting low and you'd look at the needle?
You think you got the general idea?
Yeah.
Perhaps smell.
Yeah.
Certainly a sort of like popping noise.
The weird where things can solve things. Anyway, this image of Celtic fans heading up to Glasgow in these Hillman Himps, as we go, Avengers, and you think, how are you going to make it to Portugal? Yeah. But lots of them did. They got there. Obviously, loads flew. Lots went by train. I mean, all kinds of sort of. But it's become such an amazing story in Glasgow.
Was it a good turnout then?
Fantastic. Bill Shankly went. Of course he did. Bill went. Yeah. And he says there was an incredible turnout, and they outnumbered the Italians 5-1.
See, I don't get that. It would feel, or perhaps even the Italian fans were taking it for granted.
Yeah.
Another walkover.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. They've won it for 2 years of the previous 3. Scots are incredible travellers in football, as we know, because you've got the Tartan Army sort of arrives. Right, and even they're going to Wembley.
Well, arguably, this might be their initial journey, mightn't it? This is their kind of great big trip out.
Do you remember when they played Porto in Seville and they took looked like $500,000 or something? Like Rangers when they went to Manchester.
I think it's $250,000, but they moved around a lot.
Yeah. So they're over there. It's become a big event. I mean, the press interest in Britain is huge, even though it's a Scottish team. Stein is making this known very, very, often that look, we're not just the first, British team, we're the first Scottish team to make it. He feels an innate sense of national pride that they've got there. He's and there's a great clip of him talking about the way that English journalists are about football, and he says they're not journalists; they're disciples of the English game. They don't see how the Scots can compete. He's a man.
So
he's not Bill Shankly, by the way. But he's a man that's going, look, you don't give us enough credit for what we do, the way we play, and what we've achieved. And he's kind of right at that point. And don't forget, a bit later, he does beat the great Leeds team over 2 legs in the European Cup.
And, of course, they are sent out there as the ambassadors of the English game at that particular stage.
Absolutely.
So what I love about that, so Andy Murray listened and learned well when he says one day I'm Scottish and the next day I'm British, didn't he? So, excellent.
So there's a lot of that where Stein's taken with him. Like I said, this incredible sense of Scottish pride, the way they play, the team that's come from nowhere. Like I said, it's the first time Celtic have really sort of or Scottish team has really had enough. I mean, Scottish teams have always done well in Europe, but to get to a final is huge. It's now starting to be seen as the biggest domestic trophy in the world. It is now, of course, famously. So there's all these things sort of gathering momentum, and their journey to the final is interesting because a bit like Inter Milan, they've kind of like rolled through the rounds and they've beaten teams. They beat a Swiss team, FC Zurich, 5-0. They beat Nantes, a French team, 6-2.
Wow.
Quite a fancied Nantes team as well. And there's a French journalist who apparently says, "Oh, zut alors!" That's how they say French.
Most of the time.
Anyway, whatever he says in French, he famously goes, "The numbers are not on the shirt, they are on the shorts." Who was this team? It was
Like
Celtic.
it.
Yeah, it was Celtic.
Sort of German French geezer.
Yeah, so
they like it.
So they cut in a dash mark. You know what I mean?
They're having an
effect.
That was a big deal.
Massive.
In the same way that you mentioned Super Leagues, who now suddenly turn up with eyelashes sticking out from their socks and and smiley badges.
Yeah.
That's Celtic top, and then suddenly this kind of, what is this mad innovation?
Yes, yeah.
New thing.
Exactly. They beat a Yugoslavian team, it's now in Serbia, FC Vojvodina.
Yep.
So, but we don't worry about too much about pronunciations. We have a goal.
If
That's the
at
main
all.
thing. We try.
Oh, we are plucky.
We are plucky. That's exactly the word. We're like, what are we like? A plucky team, 3-0 down the FA Cup, away in Grimsby, and we go out and somebody goes, "Come on, lads, we can do this."
0-0 second half.
Game starts now. Lucky
and then they score immediately for kick-off.
That happened to me. I was playing on a charity game as well. My back finally gave out, and I cleared the ball off the line. A diving header, bang, and I felt my back going, but I leapt up and go, "Come on, we can do this!" And as I did it, somebody else smashed the ball back.
It really
literally.
I loved it. If it hit you straight in the face and
Oh,
got
that
in.
would have been
But we
funnier.
can't have everything.
Can't have it all.
Can't have everything.
The next time we tell our story, it did is smash me in the face. Yeah. And then there's the big moment. They play a really, really good Dukla Prague
of course.
team. So, of course, Dukla Prague is Czechoslovakia then, now split into two countries, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Then it was all one country, Czechoslovakia. Dukla Prague have entered the consciousness of us, of a certain generation, because a band called Half Man, Half Biscuit famously released a song called "All I Want for Christmas Is Dukla Prague Away Kit."
Of course, that's right.
Yeah.
Do you remember what that would look like?
Yes, it was a kind of like almost like a purpley thing with like a yellow kind of arm, and it's really fashionable to buy one now for indie kids and people who are into certain.
Because
of
course. Because that's kind of like your
A little
indicator,
tip.
isn't it? That's right. So you don't have to say anything to the other kid who's got. You just go.
I've got to do
Good.
And interesting enough, in 1992, my band, the Pocket Devils, supported Half Man Half Biscuit at the Reader Car Leisure Centre in Merthyr Tydfil.
Really?
Yes.
I wondered if we'd get Merthyr in.
So we met.
No,
them. Always do it.
No, I never wondered if we get
always do
Merthyr
it.
in.
But I spoke to them after, good lads, and I remember that single very, very well.
Yeah.
So this team worked, and there's a lovely story that they play in Celtic Park, and they win 3-1, and Jimmy Johnson is extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful game, and he's terrified of flying. Jimmy Johnson.
Oh right.
Yeah, he's not a great flyer. So apparently, Stina said to him, "Look, if you win this game by more than one goal, I want to fly just so you play well, thing." Anyway, return leg takes him anyway. I had to be sure, Jimmy, because they scored the one goal, so he takes him anyway. But they draw 0-0 out in Czechoslovakia, and they're in the final. Celtic are in the final of the 1967 European Cup. Incredible achievement for this team. Remember now, Mark, this is this team which barely 2 years before Jock Stein's gone into, they haven't won anything for a decade and a half.
That's why I'm saying, when we talked about this, the start of the journey is, okay, the Scottish Cup, okay, the League Cup. These are all very achievable for a team that has underachieved for years and years and years.
Yes.
To suddenly arrive at this part of that story.
Yeah.
On the biggest stage of them all, and that's what that would have been. That's clearly it in club football at that stage, against a giant. It's simple.
And so, when they famously are in the waiting to get on the pitch, in the tunnels of the dressing room, they all look across, and these amazing-looking Italians come, and everybody's like, and these are all these Scottish lads. And what Jock Stein has done is, he's obsessed with the sun weakening the team. And he's kept them out of the sun. They're not allowed to go in the sun. He said, you've got to stay in the shade, because he's worried about the Scottish disposition in the sun, which Billy Connolly
the
does
last
brilliantly.
you had as a player under HH.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah. No, that's not HH. It's Jock Stein.
Jock Stein.
Jock Stein.
Oh no. Okay, so Scotsman out of the sun.
Yes.
Is this? We're going down a Billy Connolly
lads,
route.
Yeah, we are red of hair. Fair of face, freckles everywhere. So he's gone. No, so he's obsessed by the sun weakening them. So there's a big thing of him keeping up the sun. The Italians obviously look super relaxed. They feel very at home. They've won the 2 previous.
Right.
There's a slight complacency creeping in, you'd say.
Yeah.
And even their players talk about this after. They're a bit like, who are Celtic? Who
Yes.
are these? Who are these teams? They kind of think of them as a kind of a team from the outreaches of Northern Europe that they're going to comfortably dispatch.
And especially because Celtic are going to attempt to beat them in a way that absolutely plays into straight Jeans' hands.
Yes.
Because Flair Jeans is exactly what
Yeah.
they take on week in, week out.
Yeah, exactly. So there's this huge build-up to the game. I spoke to my late father about this quite a lot, and he used to say to me, everybody watched this football match. Like,
Right.
the European Cup was huge, and he said everybody wanted Celtic to win, obviously. And he said, but there was this big build-up about... and again, I've used Archie Macpherson's quote quite a lot because they're brilliant. What he says, this is Celtic trying to end the ice age of European football.
Yes, that's
this idea
fundamentally true.
Yeah, which is like this way of playing, which is almost impossible to play against, where they just sort of catenaccio.
Yeah.
They sit back, they man mark you, they hit you in the break, and these players are super athletic, unbelievably well organised, and they can score a goal. So and I think what's happened here is HH is obviously supremely confident. He's a master planner. And he's thought, a bit like you said, Mark, I think you're right, he's thought, well, this is the perfect team for us to play against, really. They keep the ball a lot, they pass it a lot, and they'll do whatever it needs to do. But I think this is the kind of team that we can beat every day of the week, really.
There's a name I'll introduce now because it's his absence, which may or may not be a massive part of the story, is that the guy they called the architect.
Yes.
Luis Suarez.
Luis Suarez
is the name.
Yeah.
People might know him as he managed...
Not the bite in Luis Suarez.
Quite right.
Suarez,
That's right, yes. He was... But not toothless in other ways, John. He managed his national side in the 90 World Cup, which is where people will have seen him probably more likely.
Yes.
But at this stage, he's this footballer that HH has relied on completely in his team, who's kind of moved around the team a bit and ends up with this nickname, the architect, because he becomes this midfielder who controls the situation. Ballon d'Or winner just before coming into that season.
Yeah.
250 games for the club. He actually managed them 3 times as well, a couple of times as caretaker, but injured for the final.
Right.
So absent. And is there a strong argument that says that they didn't even realise how much they were going to miss this kind of catalyst figure in their team?
I think there's an argument to say that if you lose your best player, if Celtic had lost Jimmy Johnston, for argument's sake, would it have affected them?
Right.
The case against that would be the way the match was played out. Because what happened was there was this huge thing about just don't concede an early goal against them. That was the big sort of plan. And Jock talked about it. Whatever happens, lads, we'll play the match, but don't try and concede too early because these are the masters of getting a goal and then shutting up shop. And what happens after the 7th minute, Capellini gets brought down by Jim Craig in the penalty. And it is a penalty.
Right.
It's a penalty. And Mazzola?
I think we're going to go with Alessandro, but it's Sandro Mazzola or Mazzola. Take your pick.
Mazzola.
It may change during the course of this conversation. Exactly, that's right. Exactly, that's right. But we all know what we mean, especially because he's such a distinctive character. Yeah. Again, I remember his sticker from the 1970 World Cup book. He's done all that. He famously later on in life, he's a commentator in Italian football on 2 Italian World Cup wins, which I think is distinctive on that one there.
Yeah.
But the really sad and touching part of this story is that he comes from a footballing family. He's born in Turin. But the reason he's born in Turin is because the family have just moved there because his dad Valentino's a player, and he's signed for Torino. But when he was just a young boy, Sandro, his dad dies because he's part of the Gran Torino team that was killed in what is called the Supercar air disaster.
The plane crash,
May 1949. When the plane crashes into the hillside, trying to land again in Turin, and it hits the hillside on which the famous basilica is, and it's known as the Supercar
they're the best team in
Basilica.
Italy at that point, aren't they?
They were, and Gran Torino, and everyone died on that aeroplane, flying from Lisbon.
Oh wow!
Oh, the irony! The poignancy of that moment.
Yeah.
And when I discovered that, I'm thinking, wow, this is incredible. It can't have not been in Sandro Mazzola's mind.
No,
that he's playing in the city.
Yeah.
The last place that his dad saw.
Yeah.
So that's part of that story as well.
Amazing, very poignant, isn't it? So the match itself, after the penalty, which is the worst possible start
Yep.
for Celtic. I think there's some really famous commentary that says that the worst possible start for Celtic has occurred. And after that, Mark, I mean, it's almost impossible to exaggerate the way Celtic recovered.
Yeah.
The way they played, the elasticity of their play, the way they pass it forward quickly. They bamboozle the Italians.
Yeah.
And a few of the Italian players said that they'd never quite played a team like this before, the way they moved the ball and the way they just incessantly went at them. And there's some amazing stats after their first goal that the Celtic goalkeeper, Ronnie Simpson, only has to make 2 more saves for the rest of the game. Yeah.
Well, obviously we know this is narrow victories, Steve.
Narrow
they
victories.
probably think they're sitting on a 1-0, don't
Whereas
they?
Celtic, and this is the stat everybody always goes over, 39 attempts on goal.
Good Lord.
39
That's
attempts.
relentless.
It's relentless. And I think that was the word. That was the adjective of the two. Celtic just become relentless. They pour forward. They recycle the ball. They pass it quickly. They get behind man markers. Jimmy Johnson's got... It is... I watched the whole game, and sometimes you watch football matches. The Benfica United game is very good to watch as well, by the way. The Forest Malmo game is a stinker, for argument's sake. You know, it just is. Whereas this game, second half especially, Celtic, the way they play, it could almost... There's a reason why Michels and Cruyff all reference Celtic in the mid-60s, the way they play, what the Dutch later did as total football. And Celtic fans quite rightly point this out. They're playing football the way that we would laud Guardiola for now. Recycling the ball, constantly playing out from the back, constantly going forward. But you know the big thing I noticed that struck me, Mark, that sometimes teams are want to do, certainly Arsenal, sorry John, or Quinny, or the Johnny Fives. God, Mark, they shoot whenever they can. Whenever they have a chance and a sight on goal, they have a pop.
Not a conversation you think you hear a lot on training grounds in modern football.
Mark, you wouldn't. The big thing that struck me was, if they have a sight on goal, that Celtic team, and it's obviously come from the way they're playing straight, they pull the trigger. It's obviously come from Stein, and both the goals, 63 minutes and 83 minutes, right, both come from shots that you wouldn't expect a modern team to take. That's the big difference for me.
Brilliant.
So they're playing this football they're playing the swinging green jean football.
Yeah.
Great. Inter Milan, they've got them on the back foot. And one of the Inter Milan players says afterwards, isn't he, that I felt that if it went to extra time, we would have lost 5-0. 5-1. When Celtic have equalised. Once they got the goal.
Yeah.
The goal was the big turning point in the 63 minutes. But the 83rd minute goal, which is the famous shot by Bobby Murdoch, which is deflected in by Steve Chalmers. If you watch that, the way the ball the way that basically somebody within sight of goal has just gone, I'm having a pop. On 83 minutes, my Mark.
Right.
Right? Whereas you got back into a game against a team that is the clamp-like, what would you think you do? Right? Take a breather, boys. Yeah.
We've got... If we're going to do this, we've got to do it right.
Yeah.
Precision, no mistakes,
Yeah.
no small percentages.
Yeah, maybe even take a breather and get to full time and
Exactly.
then get to not Celtic.
No.
I mean, for the moment they score, they smell blood like Jaws 1975. they're just gone. You can almost see in the way the body shape that Celtic and they're after Inter Milan. And it's one of the great moments in European football history because of this team that nobody expects. But when the final whistle goes, it sparks the most amazing scenes of celebration. A pitch invasion, Mark. It's all green and white. Jock Stein written with felt-tip pen on his white T-shirt.
Early merch.
People sort of run in. And it's such chaos that Billy McNeil, Caesar, the man we've spoken about, he has to go off the pitch and come back on again because there's such chaos. And he climbs up this little plinth. It's so iconic. And they give him this trophy and he kind of waves it to the throngs.
So it's, but not in this superbly choreographed...
organised UEFA officials. It is beautiful. It's like people there. And, listen, we've had wonderful...
He's like Les Miserables climbing the barricades with his cup.
We've had a wonderful time over these 2 episodes. I mean, we're going to finish this by saying it's such a glorious moment in football that this man holds up this trophy.
Yeah.
And he came through the reserves with his manager, Jock Stein, has tactically outdone HH, who was seen as the master in world football.
Yeah.
Still carried on for a decade. We'll talk about with Italy because the Italian manager is hugely influenced by HH, who manages Italy long after in 68 and 70. But at that moment, there is absolutely no doubt it's the summer of love. Flares rule.
Quite right too.
Flares rule. All you need is love. It's Flares. It's Celtic, and they win the European Cup.
And that's the quadruple. They're going to need a bigger boat.
Thank you. And listen, you know the drill. Subscribe, comment, all the rest of it, and we'll see you soon.